Good morning, everyone. All right, trying a new program here, so bear with me. All right, trying a new program. Facebook has changed the way we go live, so I'm not quite sure what I'm doing. So stay with me if I lose you or anything. I will see what's going on here, but I'm trying to watch on my phone at the same time to see. It keeps blinking. Are you guys seeing that blinking? All right. Morning, Donna. My screen is blinking, Donna. Do you see any blinking, or is it look okay? Facebook has yet again changed how we go live, and so it is a completely different thing going on here right now. So um, I was going to try to get on my phone and watch, but it's not letting me. But I'm getting a lot of blinking on the screen. All right. All right. So I have it up on my phone. So no blinking on your end. Perfect. All right. Good to go then. If it's just on my end, I'll deal with it. All right. So my name is Julie, and we're going to be talking today about creating a healing altar with my own little kind of twist on things for you. So it's not going to be necessarily your typical altar, but anyway, to start out, my name is Julie, and I am the owner and founder of Lady Faulty. So you're either watching this video on my Facebook page or my YouTube channel. I'm actually going to turn my phone off because I'm seeing Donna's comments, so I'm pretty sure we're all set with that. So I don't need two things going as long as I can see the comments. So the last one Facebook had me using, I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see how many people were watching. I couldn't see comments. I couldn't see anything. This time I can see comments, but I can't see how many people are watching. And it keeps blinking on my end, but that's okay. Before we get started, one of the things I did ask if you saw the list of things to bring is something to smudge with. So we're going to start out with that. I have a little bit of white sage left. Morning, Bobby Joe. Thanks for watching. So we're just getting started. I'm like super excited about today's video. I know there was going to be some people that said they were going to be going live, coming on the video, which I don't normally get because usually I'm like super early in the morning and nobody wants to, watch a video at 7 a.m. So I was super excited that some people are going to be hopping on. So some smudge just to get started. I don't know what that beep was, but like I said, Facebook has changed the way it's doing lives. So my screen is completely different. Last week, all my comments and everything were on this side. All my buttons were on this side. Now they're on this side. So just bear with me on that. And my camera, I'm still getting used to that because everything is reversed. So a lot of times I'm trying to show you something in the camera and I'm going the wrong way with it. But again, I will get better with time. So smudging is super important. Every day smudging is important, but especially right now, where there's a lot of crazy energies going on out there. Oh, that smells so good. Smudging is really great for getting rid of any negative energies that are in your space. But it's also antibacterial and antimicrobial. So it's good for that. Just want to put a note out there that there's nothing saying that smudging kills the coronavirus. So that's a little different, but it is antibacterial and antimicrobial, so it will keep you from getting sick that might weaken your immune system. And that's when, when you get the coronavirus, and it's if you have a already weakened immune system. So we're just going to smudge. So I recommend smudging your house. Normally, I would say smudge your house twice a week, smudge yourself once a day. Right now, more is more. More is better. So smudge as much as you can. I have got incense going all the time here in the house, but so far, since we've been home, or I've been home, my husband still has to work, there really hasn't been anybody in the house. A couple weeks ago, my daughter came in for a minute and stood by the back door. And then my dad came in for a few minutes and again stood kind of in the hallway in the back door and didn't really come in. So we haven't really had anybody coming in that I have to worry about. But Eric is still going to work. So you never know what he's bringing home. But smudging is always, always, always a good idea. And it is one of the things I listed on your list of items to have for today. So smudging is one of the first things you want to do when you're setting up an altar space. Is you want to smudge that area. You can also smudge the tools you're going to use individually, or you can put the altar all together and then you can smudge it once it's put together. I am one of those people that I don't usually always do things the way the book tells me to. So some people will say you have to smudge the space, you have to smudge every piece, and then you have to smudge again after. Some people just say, no, smudge once after is fine. So that's what I really tell you guys is trust your own intuition. If you have smudged and you still feel like you want to smudge again, go ahead and do it. If you've smudged and you feel like that's good, you don't need to do it again, then just move on. You don't have to keep smudging. Do whatever feels right to you. Trust your intuition. If that little thing in your head pops up that says smudge, or you don't think you quite got it good enough, or I'm not really quite sure, just go ahead and smudge it again. You can't smudge too much, so that's not really a thing. You can't over smudge your altar. And if you set your altar up and then you smudge after, you're not clearing out the intention or the energy that you have created, because smudging gets rid of negative energy, and we're not creating a negative altar. So I'm not really ever too worried about that. So again, smudging is one of the main things. You can smudge with white sage. Sorry, I'm going to reach here for a second. I have some black sage, which is really old and falling apart here, I guess. So you can use black sage. I'm just going to put that right there for now. You can use some cedar. You can use some Paleo Santos for smudging. You can use your herbs. You can put your herbs on a charcoal disc and smudge that way. We're going to talk about that a little bit more again when we get down to the herbs section. You can also use incense sticks to smudge. You can use smudge sprays. I have one here. It's over there, so I'm not going to reach for it. You can use smudge sprays. There's a lot of people out there that said they don't like to have smoke, or they can't have smoke. They live in an apartment building. And so smudge sprays are a really good tool to work with. You can work with clearing candles. So you can work with a clearing candle, and that way it's going to work as your smudge tool, but it's also going to double as your candle. So you can use that. Really think outside the box. If you're like, I don't have anything to smudge with, go to your kitchen cabinet and grab some thyme, some rosemary, some bay leaves, and light them on fire and put them in a bowl. And you can make smudge. So my big thing for the video today is really don't overthink everything. To me, when you're setting an altar or you're manifesting or setting an intention or magic or whatever you want to call it, don't overthink it too much. Do what feels right to you. That's like my big thing. Do what feels right to you. If it doesn't feel right to you, don't do it. If you're not sure about it, don't do it. Like with the smudging, if you're not sure if you smudged enough, go ahead and smudge some more. If you're working with crystals and you're not sure if you got enough, go ahead and add to it. Just really trust your intuition. That is like the biggest thing. Before we do get into any more of the altar stuff, I did really just want to talk about the tools as a general before we get into talking about the actual tools. So for me, tools are great. I love all my tools. I have lots and lots of them, way more than I probably should or need. But the key to it is you don't need any of them. Really, you don't. Your biggest magical tool is yourself. That's really the key to it. The key is yourself. You are the energy that is going to create, manifest, summon, whatever you want to call it. Pray, if you're praying. So all of those things are the same thing, just in different terms and maybe done a little bit differently. But the biggest tool is yourself. All this other stuff can help. It can help amplify. It can make the work easier. But really, you don't need any of it. And so if you don't have a single tool that I am going to talk about, don't be like, I can't do this because I don't have any of that stuff. I am going to try to tell you as many things outside of the box as I can think of when we're talking about them. So like I said, if you're saying like, I don't have anything to smudge with, I can't smudge, go to your kitchen cabinet. You probably have clove, you have thyme, you have rosemary, you have basil, you have bay leaves. All of those things can be used as smudging tools. If you've got a cedar tree in your yard, go out and clip a little piece of the cedar off and you can use that. There are really like a ton of things you can do outside the box. But again, I think my biggest message is you don't need anything to do the work. The only thing you need is you and an open mind. So just going to go quick off track here a little bit, not too much off track, but as far as like the Wiccan goes, they do what they call spell work. And a lot of magicians will use spell work. A lot of different cultures and religions use what they call spell work. And spell work, if you kind of track it back, the word spell is writing. So if you have an intention, you have something you're trying to manifest, something you're trying to create, summon, whatever the word is you want to use, praying for, write it down or speak it out loud. But the thing is, you need to really believe in it. You need to believe you can make that happen. So, for example, if we're trying to create right now a healing altar and my intention is going to be for the planet. So we'll talk about that again in just a second. My intention is for healing the planet. The biggest tool is me. I have to know that I can make that happen. I have to know that I can go out and do something to make that happen. Now, making an altar is great, and making an altar is going to help. It's going to help set my attention. It's going to be a visual reminder. There's all kinds of things you can, that an altar is great for. But really the bottom line is it comes down to you and doing the work. I'm not going to tell you you can set up an altar, do all this, set up an altar and walk away and everything's going to be great. You still need to do the work, whatever that looks like for you. So, but don't get caught up in the tools part of it. It was really where I was going with that. If you don't have the tools, don't worry, don't freak out. You don't really need them, and you can pretty much always find some sort of substitute or an outside the box way to come up with things. So, okay. So when you're creating an altar, we'll just go into the 5 basics real quick of creating an altar, and then we'll get into the tools we're going to use. So 1 is location. First, you need to decide where you're going to set up your altar. And there's a couple of different things that I want to go over with you on that, and then I'll tell you what I think. So some people believe that your altar should always be set up to the east. So whatever the east end of your property or your house is. For me, the farthest east in my house is my bedroom, which is where my big altar is in the bedroom. It is at the east end. The second people think is that you should have that in the most used room, the room you're going to spend the most time in. Now, again, for me, mine is in my bedroom, which is where I spend 8 to 9 hours in that room. Where in the living room, I don't. Usually these couple of weeks I am, but normally I'm not in these rooms very often. So the room I'm in the most is in my bedroom. Other people will tell you that you should set it up in the center of your home. So the center of my home would basically be pretty much where I'm sitting right now. So to me, your altar should be somewhere where you're going to see it. Not in a closet. Outside is great if you're going to be outside a lot. If you have a nice patio, backyard, anything like that, you could set them up out there. If you have them covered, some of the items we're going to use may get wet if you set them outside. But so again, I think the biggest thing for setting an altar is placing it where you're going to see it. It is going to be a visual representation, a visual reminder of the work that you're doing. One of the other things you can do is you can use a tray. Mine has got my gemstones in it right now, but you can just use a tray. And it's got all my stones in it, or not all of them, but the ones I've cataloged so far. You can use a tray for your altar, and that's a really great way to be able to move your altar. So if you want to have it up, if you want to take it outside, you can take your tray outside. If you want to move it to your bedroom, you can take it down to your bedroom. So a wooden tray, just trying to show you some different things here. This is full of crap right now. It's all things I'm working on at the moment. But this big basket, you could put your altar in here and move that with you if you wanted. You can use a metal tray, like a serving tray, if you want. There's all kinds of different trays. I bought a little tray at Family Dollar. It was a wooden tray. It was just wood, and I painted it. And that's what I'm using as my crystal healing tray that I'm working on. So trays, any kind of tray is a really great way to work with your altar, because you can then make your altar portable. I would suggest either a wood tray, a basket tray, or a metal tray. A copper tray would be awesome, but you can use a plastic tray, because I'm going to be the one to tell you that there's nothing that you can or can't use. But I like to stick more towards natural materials. So metals, the basket is a woven material and the tray is wooden. So those are the types of materials that I like to stick with. But if you have a plastic tray and you want to use a plastic tray, go for it. If that's what you feel like you want to use. So location, again, if I can't tell you to go by the book because there's so many books that tell you different things. So you can set it up in the easternmost point of your home. You can set it up in the room that you're going to spend the most time in. You can set it up in the center of your home. Depending on what type of altar you're making, you can go ahead and use the Bagua map. If you haven't seen that before, you can just Google it. It's pretty easy to find. It will basically be a map of your home and what area of your home is the best. So if you're trying to work on family, if you're trying to work on love, if you're trying to work on financial things, the Bagua map will tell you where you're supposed to set up your altar. If that's something you are interested in. To me, the two biggest things is setting up your altar where you're going to see it and you're going to work with it. That's to me the most important part. Doesn't matter where it is. That to me is the most important part. Number 2 is your theme. So the theme of your altar, and we're going to be working with a healing altar today, but you can make altars for all kinds of things. Pretty much anything you can think of, you can make an altar for it. So I'm not going to go crazy into different kinds of themes today, but our theme that I'm working for is a healing altar, but you can break that down even to self-healing, planetary healing, family healing, physical healing, emotional healing, spiritual healing. Like you can break that down into whatever type of healing you want. Today, I'm setting my altar, the same as my main altar, which is for planetary healing. So that's the theme of mine, but you can do yours a little different. The herbs and the oils and all of those things are basically going to be the same, healing overall, but you can set your intention to be a little bit different in the healing if you'd like it to be. Number 3 is the items, which we're going to get to in just a second, and we're going to talk about, and I'm going to try to show you as many possibilities as I can. I will let you know that this video is probably going to go over an hour because there is quite a bit I want to cover with you, and I don't have to run off to work. But I'm trying to talk as fast as I can and not be too overwhelming for you. So number 3 is items, and we're going to kind of loop back around to that. But number 4 is your setting your intention. So once you've got your items, and we're kind of skipping over that part, we're going to come back to that. But once you've got your items and you're working with your items, you're going to be setting your intention. So that is, again, we can say healing, but what exactly is the healing and what is each item for? And we're going to loop back around to that. And then number 5, the biggest thing is for your altar is to use it. And use it just really means you're not going to like physically go do something with it. It's not necessarily going to be an interactive thing. Maybe using your altar is going to look like just taking a few minutes every day to light your candle, burn your incense, use your oils, take a minute with the stones that you've picked. It doesn't have to be a big, long, drawn-out thing to use it. But again, that's why I say if it's in an area where you're going to visually see it and you're going to be able to take a minute. For me, like I said, it's my main one is in the bedroom. So it's one of the first things I see when I get up, and it's one of the last things I see when I go to bed. But but it's not real interactive for me. I don't have a lot of stuff that I do different things with. The altar we're going to do today, or I'm going to set up today, is going to be a little bit more interactive. So location, theme, items, set your intention, and use. Those are the big 5 for your altar. All right, I think I've covered as much of the basics as I can. Again, I can't see how many people are watching, so I do apologize for that. I don't know why Facebook is not showing me that information, but does anybody have any questions in regards to that before we get into talking about the actual tools? The other thing, if you're on and you're watching, could you please give me a hello or a thumbs up or a high five or whatever? Because again, I can't see it. Facebook used to tell me when someone was joining, and there used to be a little eyeball up on the top of my screen that would have a number, so I would know how many people are watching. And I don't have any of that on my screen right now. And I don't really want to play with the screen because I don't want to mess anything up. So does anybody have any questions before we go into tools? All right. So again, just give me a high five or a thumbs up or a good morning or anything like that if you're watching. The other thing is go ahead and feel free to invite some of your friends if you think there's somebody out there that might be interested in the video as well. Or you can even share, you can do a watch party, whatever you guys want to do. So feel free to do any of those things. All right, so not coming up with any questions. So we're gonna move right into our tools. So we already talked about our smudge tools, but again, I'll just go over it. So you can use white sage, which mine is pretty much done for. You can use Paleo Santos. You can use cedar. I have some black sage here that you could use. You can use clearing candles. You can use smudge sprays. You can use incense. And incense, you can use the cones. You can use the sticks. You can use a charcoal burner. You can use any of those things that you want as smudging. So you can even use essential oils as a smudger. I don't know if a smudger is a real word, but you can get oils that would be the Paleo Santos or the white sage, the cedar, any of those, and you could put those in a diffuser. You could put those on your charcoal disc, and smudge that way as well. So again, don't get too caught up on with the I don't have white sage, I can't smudge, because I really don't think that that is true. There are always ways that you can clear your area, even if you don't have a white sage bundle. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the next thing on your list was a crystal generator. So let me get a picture. Let me get a generator. This is what a generator looks like. If you have not seen a generator, again, got to go backwards. I'm trying to get it where you can see it. So this is a generator. This is a small one. You can have large generators. The one I picked for today is just a small one. It's just a little pyramid, and that is clear quartz. So this clear quartz isn't any better necessarily than this clear quartz. It's not like this one's gonna be better because it's bigger. I will go quickly into my theory of shapes for crystals. There are, again, I'm not the one to tell you to go by the book because I don't necessarily go by the book. There are people out there that will tell you you have to have a generator if you are doing crystal work. There are people out there that'll say you need a generator for a grid, or you can only work with a spear if you want this kind of energy, or you can only work with I don't know, a hexagon if you want this type of energy. And I don't necessarily buy into that theory. My theory is a stone, no matter what shape, what size, what color, each stone has an energetic property. And I believe, which again is not typical what most people probably believe, but I believe it is similar to us. We are an energetic being. And most everybody has heard about an aura. And the theory on that is our energy field is about 12 inches out from our body. That is our energy kind of goes out to this far, and then it just starts to kind of disperse. But our energy field kind of goes out about 12 inches from our body. And we don't necessarily control that. We don't say, well, I want more energy to come off my back than I do my front. It is just, that is our field. And my opinion on the gemstones is basically similar, that this stone has an energetic field of, about like this much, and then it starts to lessen and disperse. The energy is still there. It just, like, the farther you get away from the crystal, the less intense it is. So I don't believe that you have to have a generator to direct the energy, or a sphere for the energy to go all around the room, or those things. If you're interested in that, I did a video last year about the different shapes of crystals, but basically the crystal contains the energy, and the energy field is around the crystal, and then it disperses. So having the crystals in your space is going to change your energetic field. Being closer to the crystal is going to intensify that. Actually holding and touching and wearing the crystals is going to even intensify that even more. So I don't, again, get caught up on the shapes of the crystals. If you don't have a generator, but you just have a piece of quartz, that's perfectly fine. You can still work with that quartz. Now let's see here. Even if you just have, I'm trying to find different shape. Even if you have just a chunk, like there's no actual shape to it, it's just a chunk, that again is not going to be any different, in my opinion, to working with this. The energy is in the stone. It is not in the shape. If I grew 10 feet tall, my energy is not going to change. If I shrunk 5 inches, my energy is not going to change. My energy level might change. If I grow this way, my energy is not going to change. My energy is going to be the same no matter what this outer container looks like. This energy is going to be the same no matter what the outer container looks like. That's my opinion. It's going to differ from a lot of people's opinions. So again, if that's not yours and you believe that you want to work with all the different shapes for all the different purposes, go right ahead. There's lots and lots of people that do. I'm not going to think any higher or lesser of you because you do or don't. I try to bring as much information to you as I can and then let you decide on how you want to work with them. But again, one of my biggest messages is don't get caught up in the fact that if I listed you need a generator and you're like, I don't have a generator, I can't do this. It's not really, it doesn't really work that way in my opinion. Your generator, you probably want it to be quartz. Now, again, whether it's this piece of quartz or this piece of quartz, or this piece of quartz. I have a lot of quartz. This piece of quartz, this piece of quartz, they're all going to do the same thing. So, but quartz, the reason you want to work with quartz is because it's an amplifier, and it's going to amplify your intentions. It's going to amplify the energies of the other crystals. It's going to amplify the oils, the herbs, and everything on your altar. So again, that's why if you don't have a generator, it's fine. But I would recommend that you have some sort of piece of quartz. I was going to try to show you if I have anything else here, but this is just a big piece of tumbled quartz. And I don't believe that this and this are any different. The energy of the quartz is still the same, no matter what the shape is. So you could certainly just get a nice little piece of tumbled quartz as well. So again, just don't get caught up on, the tools is what I'm trying to tell you. So, but I did list the generator. So if you have a generator, great. If you don't, work with what you have. All right. So the next thing I wrote was healing crystals. And so typically we're going to work with green. Green is most likely any typical green stone is going to be some sort of healing stone. Now you can dig down in and go farther down into the properties of what healing is. You can look up ones for lung healing. You can work up ones for emotional healing. You can look at ones for grief healing. But primarily, if you're new to crystal work, associate your crystals with your chakra, and your heart chakra is green. So that is the healing stones. So let's see here. I will show you a couple that I pulled out. One is bloodstone, which is healing. I picked green aventurine, and this is like, backwards again. This is like in a little pyramid cone shape. So green aventurine is a good healing stone. I have some green celestite, and I have a piece of green quartz. So those are the 4 stones that I picked. And so I should go back a little bit. Sorry. I'm going to hop back for just 1 second. When we were talking about the location of your altar, one of the things is you might want to pick an altar mat. I didn't tell you that. I didn't have it on the list. But you might want to have something that you're going to be using as a mat. For example, this is not one I'm going to be using, but it's just an example. I bought this for $1 at the dollar store. It's just a napkin. So you can use that. If you're using a tray, like you could put this inside the tray and use it. Where we're working on a healing altar, I would suggest something in a green would be really nice. So this is just a piece of fabric that I bought at the consignment store. So I could cut a square or like a rectangle shape and use that. You can use a mat. You can buy these. I do have a couple for sale, but they're not necessarily healing ones. But these canvas mats are really great because if you spill anything on them, it's really easy to clean up. The other thing about some of these mats is it'll actually show you where you're supposed to put all of your items. See the little circles? So it basically helps you set up your altar by showing you. So like up here, it's saying if you were going to work with a crystal grid, you could put it right here. And then, sorry, this is all, it's backwards. So over here is your herbs. Yeah. And then I can't read it upside down, but it has the spots where you could, over there, here, you can see where it's got the crystals. So you could work with something like that if you wanted. The other thing that I think I use a lot of times for my altars is I just go to the dollar store and get placemats. But if you're going to be working with one today, I would suggest green because green is the healing color. So, but it's nice to have that little, like if you've got your tray or you've got your piece of cloth, then you know this is the space you've got to work with and how you're going to fill it. So back to crystals. Sorry, I just forgot to mention that, and I wanted to. So, what I think I'm going to do is I don't have enough space here on my table at the moment because I do have crazy amounts of stuff here. But what I'm going to kind of do is just, I should have done this before, but I'm just going to cut a piece of this real quick. It's not going to be very neat, and it doesn't really need to be, honestly. And I'm going to build my altar down here beside me on the floor, and I will take a picture of it and show it to you. Actually, I don't know if that's what I want to do. Bear with me for 2 seconds. I should have had this done though. And it does want to cut. Come on. Okay. So it's really not going to be a very good shape. But you guys will get the idea. All right. I'm going to just throw the rest of that. All right. So I basically got a square here that I'm going to set on the floor right here to work with for my space. And you guys won't be able to see it on the camera, but really I just have so much stuff here right now. Normally I would turn the camera down so you can see it, but there's just so much stuff I want to go over. It's going to be kind of hard. But you can take your generator or your quartz or whatever your piece is that you're using along with your stones. So I picked 4. I picked 1 for each direction. So north, east, south, west is the way I decided to pick these. You can certainly go with less. You can go with more. There's no right or wrong answer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put these on, let's see here. Stones is the north, is the way. So I will go over that with you as well. So this is east. So this is north. So this is actually going to be the way my altar is placed right now. It's going to be towards the top of my altar space. But you don't need to. You can put it wherever you want in your space, whether that's the piece of cloth, whether it's a tray, no matter what it is. I did put the quartz in the middle, and then I've put the 4 stones around, and again, in the 4 points for the directions. So your crystals are going to be your represent your element of earth. No, sorry. Yes, earth. Gosh. So north is represented by earth, and the stones are represented by earth. So that is why I put the stones in the north of my altar space. But again, you can put them anywhere you feel called to put them. As you're putting them, I'm not taking a whole lot of time actually placing them, but you could actually even take the time and say, I place you in the north. I place you in the east. And you could go around and do that and set a very clear intention of which each stone is for. Again, however it feels right to you. Some people, when they build an altar, it could be an all-day process. Other people will just place their things around. They know what they're there for. They know what they want to use them for, and they're good. They've just made their altar. That's typically how I do it. I just kind of place everything because I've already thought about what I want on my altar before I actually started creating it. Just like I have here, I've gathered all the things that I would want to use in building my altar. So I've already put that thought and that intention into gathering all of those items. And as you build more altars, you'll get a lot better at that as well. But if you're just someone who's starting, you may want to take a minute and say, I am placing this quartz on my altar with the intention of it to amplify all the healing that I'm placing on this altar. Put it in your own words, whatever feels comfortable to you. So you could make it very ceremonial in that way as well if you wanted. I'm going to keep going about the tools. I'm going to try to reference the directions for you as I go. I'm going to try, again, I'm sorry you can't see it, but I will take a picture of it and go over it with you. But I just can't. I have too much stuff here. And we're already into 47 minutes, and I have not even really even got into any of this yet. So the next thing I have listed is a wand. This is the wand that I chose. I chose it because it is got the green fabric on it, and I just felt that it would be really nice and fit really well into the altar. It's also made out of selenite. So selenite is a nice clearing stone. So it's going to clear anything that we don't really want there. So again, you can place the wand wherever you really want it to be. Some people will say, well, let me go back a step. When we choose a wand to place on an altar, the wand is representative of spirit. So we have representatives of the earth, air, water, and fire, which we're going to get into all of that. Wand is your element of spirit. It represents spirit. If you don't have a wand, one of my favorite wands is this one. It's a stick with a little piece of sari ribbon on it and a little teeny golden quartz point. That's it. This is one of my favorite wands. But you can use just a plain stick. The altar in my bedroom is just a piece of driftwood. That is what I have for a wand. If you don't want to use a wand, the other thing that you can use is what they call an anthem, which is typically a black knife. And you can use this as you can get an actual knife and use it. Like I could literally go to my kitchen cupboard and get a black handled steak knife and put it on my altar and use it that way. This is a gemstone one, but I don't typically work with them. This was one that came in one of my kits, so I have that here, but I don't typically work with an anthem. I prefer the wands. And I don't believe that magic is going to spit out of this like Harry Potter when I say something. But wand is your representation of spirit. And again, I picked this one. It's got some nice little green gemstones on it, and it has the green ribbon on it, or fabric. It's actually the same fabric that I just cut. And so I'm going to place that. Now, again, going back to placing. Typically, if you're going to be placing a wand for spirit, it can go in the middle. It can go on the top. Some people say that it should always go on your left side of your altar. Again, it really depends on you because, like I said, when you're setting up an altar, as far as like a Wiccan practice goes, it tells you your wand is always supposed to be on your left side. But other practices will say it needs to be at the top because it's spirit. So if you're making the star, you have your each of your directions, and then the top point is your spirit. Other people say put it in the middle. So again, it's really however you want to do it. I'm going to go ahead and place it in the middle. And I'm just going to kind of put it at a diagonal. It doesn't really need to go any specific way, but I like the look of it in a diagonal way. All right. We're going to go to the next thing on my list is a smudge fan. And that is a couple of different things you can use. This is literally feathers that my husband found in the backyard. I've washed them. I've run them through soapy water and washed them and let them dry. And so you could just use something like this as a smudge fan. It's literally, not to be gross, but he found the dead bird out in the backyard and he brought me in the feathers because I'm weird like that. But no, we don't want to waste anything. And I can make a purpose for this. So you can use that and you make a nice little smudge fan out of something like that. You can use a single feather. And I have some around here somewhere, but I'm not going to dig one out. Well, they're up there. I can't reach them. You can use just a single feather, or I have made my smudge fan. That's my super fancy one. It has all kinds of feathers in there. There are pheasant and peacock and some they're obviously dyed. I don't think they're natural colored, but so I have a nice big smudge fan. And you will want to place that on your altar. I'm going to use the smaller one just because it's smaller. It doesn't take up so much room. And I'm actually going to put it in the east, which is air. So that's going to be to the east of my altar. And I'm going to place it more towards the outside of the altar. I may change that later. I may decide I want to move it somewhere else. But right now it's to the outside of the east side of my altar. And that's going to come into play when we're going to work with our incense. So, and when you're smudging. So both of them is a good reason to use your smudge fan. All right. Oils. Oils can be a little trickier. So there are lots of different things you can do with your oils. Some of the oils that I have, tea tree. Tea tree is if you're familiar with oils, what they call like a master healer. Tea tree, if you only have one essential oil to have keep tea tree. So it's kind of known as a master healer. So I'm going to work with tea tree. I am going to work with eucalyptus, which is also healing. And I'm going to work with bergamot. Now, you can easily Google healing oils, healing herbs, and get a list of different ones you can use. Now, if you don't have tea tree oil, but you have some tea tree herb, go ahead and mix it up. What I did is I went through and I picked 3 oils and I picked 3 herbs, but you could easily interchange those. Like the oils, you could have eucalyptus herb, bergamot herb, and tea tree herb. And then the herbs I'm going to use, you could easily use the oils. So, or you could use, if you have tea tree herb and tea tree oil, you can use both of those as well. Again, don't get too caught up in the tools of it. So, you don't necessarily need to do that. So some of the ways you can use your oils. You can make yourself a nice little perfume blend to anoint with. So you can get a bottle. You can get just an empty bottle and your herbs and put them all in and put some sort of carrier oil in. This one is apricot. I'm not gonna make a perfume only because I have more perfumes than I'll ever live long enough to wear. But you could certainly make one. If I was going to make one, I'd make one really small because, like I said, I have so many that I'll never live long enough to wear them all. But some of the other things that you could do is you could just have a small little bowl and you could put some Himalayan salt in there and you could drop the just a few drops of the oils in there and work with it that way. You can, I'm telling you, I've got so much stuff here on my desk to try to show you guys. This is a little oil diffuser that I have. So it just has a little tea light in it. And you can just go ahead and put the oils right in there's a little pan in there. So just for visual purposes, I'm going to go ahead and place this on my altar and just place my oils next to it. So when you're ready to use your altar and work with it, it may just be simply adding a few drops and lighting your candle to work with your altar. And your oils are going to go to the west because your oils are going to represent your water. So the west is going to be on this side. So I'm going to put the little decanter diffuser thing a little up on the west side and then put the oils to the front of it for right now. I'm not going to light it just because it's on the floor and I don't think that's overly safe. But again, just a little candle in there and a little, the oil right there. You can buy ones at the dollar store that are like that. If you've seen them, there's just the cutout that you slide the candle in underneath and you can put a few drops in it. So you can buy one of those at the dollar store. It doesn't have to be a fancy copper one like mine. Again, you can just buy a little teeny bowl. I don't even know what this is actually intended for, if it was a candle holder or what the heck it was. But you could put some salt in there, some Himalayan salt, some sea salt, anything like that, and drop the oils in that way to use it. Or, like I said, you can make a perfume. The one I have here is called Danu, and we'll get to why I picked that one. But you can just literally, I could have this sitting on my altar, and when I get up in the morning or when I'm going to do my altar work, I could just pick up the bottle and just anoint with it. and place it back on my altar. So I'm going to put that on the altar too, with the other oils. Because again, there's no right or wrong way. I could use the perfume and still use the diffuser, and that would be perfectly fine. Or you could just use the perfume. Or I have used a lot of oils, and I'm pretty okay with, I can use most oils neat. That's what they call, I can just put it right on my skin. I don't recommend doing that if you haven't done that before. I would go ahead and mix it with some sort of carrier oil. Even a lotion, if you got a body lotion in your bathroom, you could mix a few drops with your body lotion and use them that way. So again, think outside the box. If you're like, I don't have a carrier oil, I can't do that. Think outside the box. You can put them in your shampoo. You can put them in your body lotion. You can put them in your in the salt and use that in the shower. You can work with your oils in so many ways that it's really kind of endless. But again, I don't want to be stuck too much on going over all that, because again, if you're more interested in learning about oils and their uses, I have other videos for that. So we're going to move on to the hurling herbs, the healing herbs that I picked. And I have picked chamomile. I have picked red sandalwood. And I have picked lavender. So again, all of those are healing herbs. I'm not going to go too much into the actual properties of any of these. Most people are familiar with chamomile, lavender, and sandalwood. But again, if you really want to know all the juicy details about them, you can Google them or send me a question if you're like, why did you pick sandalwood? And I can go more into that with you. But most of this stuff, you can really just Google it and get the answers. So working with herbs. So you can, again, do a number of things. You can take that same little bowl and just pour some of the herbs in there and place that on your altar if you want to. If you're going to do that, I would suggest a nice glass bowl so you could kind of see it. I think they're pretty. Might as well get the visual out of it as well. You can use a charcoal disc and burn them. So one of the things I'm going to put on my altar for today is this little teeny tiny cast iron cauldron that I have. And I'm not going to light it right now, but I'm going to put the charcoal disc in there. And I'm going to take my herbs, and those are going to be placed to the east with your feather. So I'm going to place this just to the top, my little cauldron thing, I'm going to put to the top of my feather. And then my herbs, I'm going to just put the packets right to the bottom. In no particular order or anything, just going to place them there on there. So when I'm ready to use my altar, now my oils are there with my little diffuser, and my herbs are there with my little cauldron, and my charcoal, which is in there, which is all ready to go when I am ready to use my altar. All right, so we're moving on to chalice. So chalice, you guys probably ask, why do we need a chalice on here? Well, you don't need a chalice on here, but chalice is representative of the female womb. I think it's a great one to use, especially in my altars are towards Mother Earth, Gaia. And so I think the womb, the chalice, is a great representation to put on there. But it also is a way of receiving blessings. When you think of the womb, you know, the womb's purpose is to give life. And so it's a great way of putting that representation into your altar, of that you're giving life to this altar. You're giving life to the intention that you're setting. It's just a really great way of representing that. And again, think outside the box. A lot of the time when it calls for a chalice, I use this. I just love them. I have 3 or 4 of them. But again, think outside the box. If you don't have a chalice, this was an old antique. Sorry, it's dirty because it has been, this is actually I grabbed it off my altar before I sat down and it needs to be cleaned. This was like an old wine glass. I don't know. I got it from the thrift store or someplace. I don't even know where I got it because I've had it for 500 years. And so you can just use a wine glass, some sort of goblet, even my Game of Thrones beer mug, but it usually has my iced tea in it. But you could even use something like this as representative. It still has that, the glass, the stem, and the base, which is basically what you're looking for. So the womb, the birth canal, and then, the vagina is the base. So it is the female reproductive system in a glass. So, but it does represent giving life and blessings and birth of your intention. So this one has some pennies in it, some really old pennies, which I didn't put down copper, but copper is a really, really great conductor of energy. So I have some pennies in here, some really old pennies. So that's my representation of copper. So for this, though, I am going to stick with my little black cup here. And the chalice really can go wherever you want it to go. I would recommend, again, more towards the west side because you could double this. And one of the things we are going to use is water. And so you could use this for your water. So if you were going to use it for the water, which we'll get to in a second, I would, again, put it towards the west. So I'm going to just put it kind of in the west corner of my altar because you just can't put everything in one spot. You can't just put things in 4 spots. It'd be too crowded and messy. But it is towards the west of my altar. It's kind of like northwest, sort of, but it's more towards the west side. And again, you would use a chalice because it represents the womb, which represents life, blessings, birthing. So birthing your intentions, birthing your creativity, blessings for the healing that we're trying to call in, all of those things. So that is one of the reasons why you'd want to use a chalice. But again, if you don't have one, just get a wine glass, get a goblet, if you got a tea light holder that's on a stem, you can use that. Again, just really think outside of the box for that. All right, so the next thing is water. And so I have a little thing here of water that I'm not going to pour it in my chalice just because I'm going to have to pick all this up after. Well, yeah, I am. I'm going to put a little water in there. It's fine if it spills, it's water. So I've poured a little bit of water in my chalice, and water is representative of healing, of being hydrated. It also, to me, is kind of water is ease and going with the flow and letting it just go where you need to go. Like if you pour water on something, it's going to take the easiest path it can to the planet, because gravity. It's going to flow easy. It's not going to fight against something to get somewhere. It's just going to take the natural, easy direction it needs to go. So water for me kind of brings in that, just remember to just kind of ease into it, go with the flow, take the natural path, don't push and fight against things. So water like has a lot of emotional, spiritual meaning for me, I guess. It's just a really good reminder for me to not always be pushing. And if you're pushing really hard, then it's probably not where you're meant to be. All right. So water. So again, water is your west direction. And so I have put it in the chalice, which is why I placed the chalice over there. You want to pick some sort of representation. Now, again, that can be really anything you want it to be. Your representation could be an animal. I'm not going to use this, but I have this here. So the crow was representation of Odin. It was also a representation of Morgan. So that's not what I'm trying to call in today, but you could use that if you wanted. I have little statues here. So this is a representation of Gaia, of Mother Earth. So this could be one that you would want to use. You can, this is kind of like a twofer. This has got the goddess Danu, which is the perfume that I used just a minute ago. So you could use your candle and have your representation on your candle. So that would kind of put two tools in one for you if you wanted to do that. This came with a nice picture on it. But if you don't have something like that, I'll show you some of the tricks that I have done. This is one, I went and bought just these green candles at the dollar store, and I tied a nice little sari ribbon on it, and I glued I don't know who that is now, but that was somebody I was working with at one point. So I glued a picture of a representation on the jar and made my own that way, just from printing off a picture, a little piece of ribbon, and a candle from the dollar store. So you can work with it that way. So there's lots of different ways you can work with different goddesses. Other things you can do is just print out a picture. Like this is one that stays here on my space. So this is a representation of Freya for me. So this stays here. So you can just print out a picture if you don't have anything. You can draw a picture. You can paint a picture. You can pull out something from a tarot card deck or an oracle deck that looks like a god or goddess that you want to use. I did a little list here of a couple. So I'll go over them real quick if you want to. Some of the ones you could work with for a Greek god would be Apollo. An African god, and again, I probably say some of these incorrectly, is Agwa, Agwa. A Celtic goddess is Airmed, which is Airmed. A Chinese god, again, I'm going to totally botch this, is Wang Tai Sin. Egyptian goddess is Isis. A Native American goddess is Angak, Angak. Another Celtic goddess is Air, and it's actually Eir. So those are some of the ones you can work with. Typically, if I'm going to be working with a god or goddess, I either work with Mother Gaia or I work with Danu. And Danu is believed to be the mother of all gods and goddesses. So kind of representative of the Mother Earth again, the mother figure. So, and she is a Celtic goddess, which is what I mostly work with. But again, you can really just use anything that you want to. You can buy those little yoga figurines. Like you've seen all those little things in the store that they're doing yoga poses and stuff, and they're not really of anybody. But you could use that as representation of a god or goddess if you wanted to. Again, you can use an animal. So if your god or goddess has some sort of animal, the first thing I'm thinking of is just Ostara is represented by a rabbit. So if we were working with her, I could just use this little fuzzy rabbit to represent her. Again, don't get too caught up in it. Go with what you have and what you feel is right. So you don't need to get too stuck in the tools and picking. Don't drive yourself crazy. All right, so the next thing I had on the list was a green candle. So again, if I was going to use this representation, I could just have my green candle, but I'm not going to use this one. I'm actually going to use this one. And so again, your god or goddess, again, can kind of be one of two places. You can set her right at the top, or you could set her at the center. If you've got a picture, you could just lay it down. That's fine. If you've got a picture, some people will just go buy a dollar frame, picture frame. And sorry, I have a message popping up here. My mother-in-law asking if I want a basket. I'll get back to you. Yes, if it's a basket, I'll probably take it. You can, again, you can place it to the top or the center. I like to go center because to me, she's kind of the focal point of the altar. But if I was going to be working with this, I could just lay it down on the altar. Or like I said, you could just go get a picture frame from the dollar store and stand it up in a picture frame. Really, just be creative, do what you want with it. But so I'm going to take her, and she's got the little tree of life here on the front, and on the back, she's got the spiral. So I'm going to set her to the center, which I'm going to put her right above my wand and right below my crystal grid. Okay. And so the next thing is green candle. And again, like I said, if I was working with this representation, I could just use this candle, and I would have both tools there. Some of the other things I picked just to show you, I'm not going to use this in my altar. It's just really big, and but I just wanted to show you, like, you can use whatever you want. You can be totally different and unique and use whatever you want. But I have this green candle. This is my friend. He's really nice. He always agrees with me. He never backtalks me. But you could use anything. So this is a little not what I would use for a healing altar. Maybe an ancestral altar. But I just did want to pull him out and show him that you can really use anything. Anything is doable, so you can certainly work with that green candle if you wanted. I could work with this candle, which again has my representation of Danu on here, and there is green in the layers. But right now I'm selfish and I don't want to burn this yet. I'm not ready to burn it. So what I actually have to put on my altar, and again, size doesn't matter. You can use this gigantic skull with the green candle on it, or I have got this little one. I have a couple of these little bases for sale. They're different. They don't all have pictures on them. But these are really great when you're doing any kind of work, because it just takes this really teeny little candle, and you don't need to buy like 500 large candles in different colors. I'll show you real quick. I bought this off Amazon like a year ago for $10, and there was 20 candles in here. But again, I'm getting a little off topic here, but I just want to show you that you can be, reuse your tools. So I have this one little candle holder, and like I use a candle, and when I switch to a new color, I just put this back, and I can use it again for when I need a black candle again. So you'll see some of them are missing because I've used them, but it came two. So there was 2 pink, 2 orange, 2 red. So we're using green again because green represents your healing. So I'm going to just use this because I think these are really great for your altars. Again, you don't have to go out and spend a ton of money on candles. You don't need to have a whole closet that's got gigantic colors of, numbers of candles in every color possible. So this is just a great little way to be able to have all the different colored candles and not spend a lot of money and not take up a lot of space. So your candle is going to go in the south because that is your representation of fire. All right, so we're going to place that just to the bottom or the front of your altar, whichever you prefer to call it. All right, so that is the last of the items I had on there. There were 2 other items that I did want to talk about real quick. I know we've really gone over our time, but at this point, I got about 9 more minutes or so to make it an hour and a half. So I figured I'll fill up the 9 minutes. Some of the other things you can put on your altar are bells. I go to the thrift stores, I go to the giveaways, I go to yard sales, and find old bells. I don't usually order a new bell or anything like that. I try to find old ones. It is tricky to find an old bell that actually has the little, I don't know the technical name for it, the little dinger. This bell sits on my Gaia altar in my room. And again, it's really natural leaves, acorns. So for me, it was a perfect fit to go on my Gaia because it just represents earth to me. So you could use something like that. This is one I got to use for an ancestral altar I did. I know it seems a little weird because it's got pretty pink roses on it, but my Gram's name was Rosalind. So that's why that tied in for me. So you could place a bell on your altar. A bell would go on your eastern side. Yeah, for air, because sound is representative of air. So you could place that. I'm going to actually place it more like my chalice is kind of northwest. My bell is kind of going to be northeast, up in that top corner for my bell. And one of the reasons you want a bell is because bells and sounds are very clearing. So one of the things you could do when you're working with your altar is one of the first things you might want to do is pick up your bell and ring it. But we're going to go over that real quick at the end if I have time. Well, I do have time, but I didn't want to make it this long. But the other thing is I did mention real quick is copper. This is a really large copper bowl. I would not use this on this altar because it's too big. But copper bowls are really great. So the copper bowl could be used in numerous ways. You could get a small one and put your oil, like I said, put the salt with the oil in it. You could put your herbs right in this bowl. You could put your stones in this bowl. You could put your candle in this bowl. One of the other things is you could take this bowl, this actual bowl, you could fill the bottom with the salt, and then you could sprinkle in your herbs. You could sprinkle in some of your oils. You could stick the candle in the middle and put your gemstones around it, and you'd have an altar right in here. You know what I mean? And this would be a nice little, like, you could put this on your table as a centerpiece. You could put it on, in your living room, wherever you wanted. I wouldn't recommend your bathroom if you're going to put salt in there because it will get funky. But you could do something like that. One of the last things I did want to talk about is for altar space, which is a little off here. But again, I don't want you to get tied up in the needing of the tools and needing lots and lots of things. So if you just had, I'm going to take my feathers back off for just 1 second. If you had this right here, this could be your altar. You have your shell for water. You have your herb for earth. You have your feather for air, and you have your fire. So these 4 little items, you could do an altar just with this. It's really about the intention, and it's about the work that you're going to do. It's not necessarily in the tools that you're going to be using. I'm just going to put my feathers back there real quick. All right. So I think, let me just scan my notes real quick here. I got herbs everywhere. And make sure that I didn't forget anything that I really wanted to go over with you. One of the things I did write down, if it's something you're interested in, if you didn't have a lot of these tools, other ways that you could use the elements is with stones if you wanted to. So if you wanted to bring in some air element, you could use any kind of like a rainbow stone. So rainbow moonstone, rainbow quartz, anything like that that's rainbowed. If you want to bring in the fire element, you could work with ruby, fire opal, fire agate. I mean, those are pretty common sense. If you want to work with a water element through a stone, you could use blue topaz or blue tourmaline. And for earth, you could use emerald, you could use some onyx, or you could use some azanite. So those are some other things that you could do if you didn't have some of the tools and you had some of those stones, you could bring in those elements that way as well. So real quick, I am going to, actually, I'm not going to do it right now. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sign off on this one. And I'm going to come back live on my phone for about 2 or 3 minutes and just show you the process of using the altar, if that's okay. And then that way I can show you with my phone what I'm doing, hopefully. So I'm going to sign off from here. I'm going to come back in the group in just a minute, and I will use my phone to go live with you and show you my actual using of the altar so you can actually see it. So with that, if there's any questions, post them in the comments, send me private message, anything you didn't understand, any questions you have. Sorry, I feel like I'm rushing this, but I'm trying to hit that 1:30 mark and not go any more over than that. So, again, remember to be kind. Your kindness not only is going to change your day, it's going to change somebody else's day. Could potentially change their life. I know that's a little hard right now because of all the social distancing, but remember when you're on Facebook and social media and all those other things, to be expressing that kindness as well. I know on Facebook, sometimes it's really easy to just spit stuff out on Facebook and then think after, well, that maybe wasn't very nice. So my own Facebook rule is if it's not needed and it's not going to add to the conversation, scroll by it. So if it's not productive, it's not going to add to it, scroll by it. Or if it's not needed, scroll by it. Like if you've seen somebody's already said basically what you would say, just scroll by it. Unless somebody's like looking specifically for opinions and feedback, then that's a little different. But if it's not needed, or not going to add to the conversation in a positive way, scroll by it. Okay. And sometimes even the little things on Facebook, I know I'm going over, even the little things on Facebook, if you see somebody's made something, instead of just putting a heart or a thumbs up, just say, wow, great job. That's really cool. How did you do that? Could you show me how you did that? What kind of thread did you use in there? All those things, just to feel connected with people is really going to help as well. So instead of just giving a thumbs up or a heart, sometimes actually just make an actual comment that's encouraging, or ask a question that's going to make that connection for you. That we're maybe lacking a little bit right now with the social distancing. So I really need to get a drink. So I'm going to go get a drink, and then I'm going to come back live with you guys and just go through the actual using of my altar. But I hope you guys found that interesting. I hope somebody in here found it useful. And I will see you guys on Monday for our weekly forecast, again at 10 o'clock. Okay? So lots of love, and I'm going to sign off, get a drink real quick, and then I'll come back and show you the actual lighting using of the altar. Okay. We're going to light some stuff on fire. All right. I'll see you guys in a minute. Love you guys. Thanks for watching.